Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for making time to join us for today's webinar. My name is Evelyn Lele, and we are glad you've joined us for this webinar. We're going to look at ArcGIS for Local Government Information Model. I can see we have a number of representatives from the different county governments and municipalities and local authorities. We are so glad that you've joined us today. So in case you have any questions or comments in the course of this presentation, kindly make use of the chat section. Then our team is on standby. They'll be able to respond to any of the questions or comments in the course of this presentation. So once again, welcome to this webinar. So today we're going to look at the local government information model. And so the local government information model is based on what we call the ArcGIS platform. And for those of us who may be new to this platform, the ArcGIS platform is a platform for managing and applying geographic information. And this platform enhances sharing and collaboration across organizations. And I think what I also need to point out is that this platform has various components, and central to this platform is the portal if you're working with Enterprise or ArcGIS Online, which is a repository where you can have all the information within your organization. Then, of course, we'll have different users within the organization, within the local governments, if you're from counties, if you're from local authorities or municipalities. So we can have the GIS professionals where they can be able to create content and publish it to ArcGIS Online or the portal. And also they can be able to get information that is already published or stored within the portal or ArcGIS Online. And then this platform also allows for creation of the different applications for those that you can use to engage members of the public, for executive access, mainly for decision making. And then the beauty of this platform is that you can be able to work anywhere at any time. And then, of course, as I had also mentioned, this is integrated with Enterprise. So one more thing that I need to mention about this platform is that this platform is available as a SaaS, that's software as a service, which allows for access to software on subscription basis. So what we're going to look at today is based on this platform, the ArcGIS platform. Then, of course, we are looking at local government. So when we talk about local governments, we're mainly talking about the subnational governments. And these are mainly decentralized units of government. So we are talking about the 47 counties in Kenya. We're talking about the local authorities in Kenya and Tanzania. We're talking about the municipalities. We're talking about federal states if you're in Ethiopia. So all these decentralized units of governance form what we are calling the local governments. And I need to point out that across all these governments, we have common workflows. Like they serve common functions. They have common functions. So we have common workflows across all the local governments. If you're talking about all the counties, they'll have similar functions. They'll have common workflows. So I just picked like 4 departments for the purpose of this presentation. So for instance, if you're talking about planning and development, this cuts across all the local governments, all the counties. So they have common objectives. Like if you're talking about that department, we'll be talking about the various land services. We're talking about rent, rates, leases. We're talking about preparation of the different types of plans, if it's a municipal plan, spatial plan, and all that. We're talking about development control and approval. So this cuts across all the local governments. And I also picked on one on land information. We're talking about development of land cadastre for these local governments. We're talking about integration of data sets. We're talking about public land surveying. So this cuts across all the local governments. Then I think one of the departments that I didn't want to forget, given the current situation that we are in, is the public health. So for the public health department, in the current situation, they will be interested in knowing what exactly is the extent of COVID-19 in the different local governments. If it's a county, if it's a municipality, if it's a federal state, then they'll also be interested in knowing, do we have enough facilities? So they're looking at health resource inventory. Do we have enough medical equipment? Which are the isolation centers? What are the number of, what's the bed capacity in the isolation centers and all that? Do we have enough medical personnel, and so on and so forth. And I thought of revenue collection being one of those important functions within the decentralized governments. Those are the local governments. So decentralized governments are actually charged with generating their own revenue. So if you're in Kenya, for instance, we're talking about on-source revenue for the different county governments. So you'll want to know, so what are the different revenue allocations to the different segments? What are the revenue streams from the different segments or sectors within the local government? Then, of course, we're also considering monitoring and implementation of the budget in all this. So I just picked this for the purpose of this presentation, but we can actually talk of each and every department within the local government. So at the moment, I think most of these processes are actually very manual. If you want any land services, I think you'll have to fill in a manual form and then physically make payments and all that, apart from maybe a few counties that are already embracing an online kind of a system. But I think most of these workflows are still very manual. And then in terms of departments, I think each of the departments within the local governments are disconnected. For instance, if you needed data sets, which could be the base data sets for the whole county, say in lands department, that information is only available within the lands department. If you needed information from the health department, from the education department, so that information is actually available within that department alone. And so if you're in any other department, you cannot actually be able to access this information. So in terms of accessing and sharing information between staff within the local government, I think there's still a limitation to this. So what will be the desired state? So the desired state will be having synchronized departmental workflows, having updated and accessible data sets. So if you need specific data sets, then this should actually be available. And that's why we're talking about we're going to talk about the local government information model today. And then, of course, we need improved collaboration and efficiency across the different departments within the local governments. And then all these local governments are engaged in initiatives and projects that they will want members of the public to know exactly what's happening and other stakeholders within the local government. So what we're going to look at today will, enhance visibility of these initiatives. And ultimately, the local governments are charged with delivery of services. So we're also going to have improved service delivery. So what we are going to look at today is part of the ArcGIS Solutions. So we have different types of solutions, ArcGIS Solutions. We have those that are industry specific, like we have ArcGIS Solutions for local government. We have ArcGIS Solutions for if you're in utilities, if you're in natural resource and all that. So we have those that are industry specific. Then we also have solutions that are based on the implementation patterns. So for instance, if you're mainly focusing on data management or community engagement, we have such kinds of solutions. So the ArcGIS Solutions for local governments are based on, or the local government information model is part of the ArcGIS Solutions for local government. And so these solutions are a collection of templates for local government workflows, applications, and tools. So these solutions are built on the common workflows across the different local governments. So so we are now here at the local government information model. So the local government information model is a free harmonized model of GIS datasets, web services, and maps that makes it possible to carry out the different operations within the local government. And it's harmonized in that there will be no duplicated data sets or redundancies. So if you're talking about having data maybe for schools or for land, we'll have uniform data sets that can be used across all the departments, as opposed to we have, say, data on maybe health facilities by the Department of Health. Then we also have data sets on health facilities by another department. So there will be a lot of duplicated efforts. So working from a centralized information model will guarantee reduced redundancies and actually having harmonized workflows across the entire organization. So this model comes, it has also editing workflows. Then we have forecast maps and applications that you can be able to create for the specific local government that you're working in. And then ultimately, we are looking at having an integrated solution for the whole local government. So this is a very good starting point. if you're in the local government. So the local government information model can be downloaded from the solutions page, that is solutions.arcgis.com. I'm going to take us there briefly. And then, so when you download this model, it comes with 3 components. It comes with 1, the data dictionary. So the data dictionary mainly contains descriptions or information about the different features, the different fields, and also the domains within the information model. So if, for instance, we have coded domains or range domains, it describes all the information that is in our information model. So that's the first component. Then the next component is the local government workspace document. This is mainly an empty schema that you can be able to work with. So for instance, if you can see on my screenshot, I just have an example of the kind of data sets that you get. You'll have demography data sets, you'll have law enforcement operations, public safety planning, land use planning, reference data, and all that. So this comes in form of the XML document is mainly an empty schema that you can work with. Then I think what I also need to mention is that this schema is not, it's not, you don't have to work with it the way it is. If you feel like there are data sets that are in the schema that you do not need, then you can actually be able to remove them. And if you feel that maybe there are data sets that you really need and they have not been included as part of the schema, then you can actually be able to add. So you can edit. It's not cast on stone. You can actually be able to customize it to suit whatever you want to work with as a local government. Then the third component is the release notes. So this mainly describes the changes that have been made to the local government information model over time. So this is usually updated over time depending on the needs of a local government. So this is also done. So those are the 3 components. We'll look at them when we'll be doing the demonstration. Then the local government information model is supplied as a geodatabase schema. So think of a geodatabase as a container, a central container where you can have all your information as a local government, if it's a county, if it's a municipality. So a geodatabase mainly serves as a specialized container for storing geographic data, which includes the feature classes that you're working with. If you're working with raster data sets, you can also have them there. If you're working with data in the form of tables, you can also have them in that geodatabase or that centralized container. So the local government information model can be implemented in form of a file or enterprise geodatabase. So I think I also need to mention that we have different types of geodatabases. So we have what we call a personal geodatabase. So a personal geodatabase, from the name, it's mainly for personal use and it's limited in size. So that will not be very ideal for a local government. Then we have what we call a file geodatabase. So a file geodatabase guarantees central working by members of a local government. So you can have many people reading or viewing information that is in a file geodatabase. Then we also have an enterprise geodatabase. So this will be very ideal for a local government, given the nature of people that you will need to be working here and the different departments that have to be brought on board. So an enterprise geodatabase allows for working with different relational databases. So if you're working with maybe Postgresql, if you're working with Microsoft SQL Server, if you're working with DB2, so it allows you to actually work with a database that you're already working with as a local government. And so this gives an extra level of security guaranteed by the database management system, because for each and every person that has to access information that is stored in the database, then they have to have credentials, they have to have a username and a password. And then you can have restrictions to the different data sets. So you can allow specific people to access specific information within the database. Then the other thing with this geodatabase also is that it allows for versioning, that is maintaining records and changes that have been made to specific data sets, which is important. So I know someone may be wondering, so how exactly do we get started as a local government, as a county government, as a municipality, as a local authority, as a federal state in implementing this within your government? So we appreciate that different local governments are at different phases or stages of implementing GIS. We have those that have already implemented these. They have infrastructure in place, they have staff in place, they have software, they have data already in place. So, and then we also have those county governments or local governments that haven't implemented this. So they do not have the capacity, maybe they do not have infrastructure in place, they do not have software, and so on and so forth. So we're actually here to work with you regardless of whatever stage you're in. So it starts with having to identify your priorities as an organization, then identifying the requirements. So this is where we do like a user needs assessment to determine, it's like a roadmap. What exactly do we have at the moment? Do we have hardware, infrastructure in place? Do we have software? Do we have capacity, people, just personnel who can work with this? Do we have data and all that? So once we've identified what exactly do we have right now and what exactly do we need, then it's easier to work from there. So it's some kind of a roadmap. Then once this is done, we appreciate also that there are those counties that have data sets. So the next thing will be migrating the existing data sets that you have, maybe if they are with different staff within the county or the local government, into the information model. Or if you also do not have these data in place, then there's also an aspect of having to collect this data. So the data can be collected and also added to the information model. So from here, then you can be able to create the various maps if they are maybe thematic map based on the different departments or what exactly you're doing as a local government. You can be able to configure and deploy the various maps and applications. So I also need to emphasize that it doesn't matter what stage you're in, we're able to walk you through this stage of implementation. So the next thing that I'm going to take us is a brief demonstration just to show how you can be able to access the local government information model, how you can be able to add it to your desktop application and even to your database, how you're able to add data, how you're able to get data that is already stored in an existing database that you're working from as a local government, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to take us through a brief demonstration of how to work with this. So just give me a few minutes. So as I mentioned, the local government information model is part of what we call the ArcGIS Solutions for local government. So you're able to access this from the solutions page. So simply go to solutions.arcgis.com. And then we're going to this, yes, so here we are. So we're going to the local government solution. So as I mentioned, we have different types of solutions. We have different solutions for different industries. As you can see here, we have local government, we have water, electric, and all that. So for us, we are only interested in, for this presentation, we're interested in solutions for local government. So we have quite a number, but I'm just gonna take us to the place where we're going to download the local government information model. So under entire organization, yes, so we have this section here on organize your geographic data. So this is where we're going to download the local government information model and then work with it. So you simply come here and click download, then you're able to download the local government information model. And as I mentioned, it comes with 3 components: the data dictionary, the schema, and the release notes. So for the interest of time, I had already downloaded this. So I'm simply going to my folder where I have this downloaded to show us what we get. So just give me a few minutes. Yeah, so I have downloaded this. So these are the 3 components that I was talking about. The data dictionary, maybe I can just open it so we see how this looks like. Yeah, so this mainly defines what we will have in our information model. So it's just a documentation showing the data sets that we are going to have. If there are domains that are used, then it actually shows us that we have coded domains, we have range domains, and so on and so forth. Then we also have the XML document, which we are going to add to our desktop application. and the release notes. So the release notes are mainly documentation also on the changes that have taken place in the incremental versions of the local government information model. So the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to add the schema to our desktop application. This is where we're going to begin to work from. So I'm launching my ArcGIS Pro. So also give me a few minutes. So ArcGIS Pro is one of the main desktop applications that we have, mainly for authoring content, for carrying out analysis, and also once you're done, you can be able to publish your information into an enterprise portal or to ArcGIS Online. So I'm gonna create a new project. So I'm going to call it Local Government Information Model Demo. So what we're going to do is simply adding the local government information schema to ArcGIS Pro so that we can begin working from here. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to add a folder connection. So I'm going to connect to the folder where I'm going to be working from. So for this presentation, I'm mainly going to be working from one folder that's called Local Government Information Model Demo. So I've added that folder connection. So notice that when you create a new project in ArcGIS Pro, it comes with a geodatabase created for you, and that will be the default geodatabase that we will be working from. Remember, I mentioned about the geodatabase being a central container where you're actually able to store all your data sets. So from the Local Government Information Model Demo geodatabase, I'm going to import the schema, the XML workspace document that we downloaded as part of our local government information model. So I simply come to import. So what I also need to mention is that you can be able to import other data sets as well. But for this case, we're going to import the XML workspace document, which will mainly have the local government information model schema. And as I mentioned, you can be able to customize this schema depending on what you're working with as a local government. So if there are data sets that you feel you do not need and they're part of the schema, you can remove them. If there are data sets that you feel you need and they are not in the schema, then you can be able to add them. So we'll be working from the local government information model demo. And then under import file, I'm going to go to where my workspace document is. So I have the local government XML document here. Then we add it, say OK. Then for import options, we'll only import the schema since the data sets are not necessarily for, like if you're working with this as a local government, you'll have your own data set. So you'll only need the schema, then you can add your own data sets to this. So we'll only import the schema. Then we'll run this geoprocessing tool. So what we're mainly doing is adding the local government, the XML workspace document, which comes in the form of a schema, to our geodatabase. Then from there, we are going to look at the different data sets that come with this schema. We're going to look at the different attributes that come with this schema. Yes, so it's taking a few minutes. So this is a very good place to start because you already have the schema done for you. You already have the domains, the definition of the different domains that you'll be working with. So it's taking a few more minutes. So once this is done, the next thing that we're going to do is add data to our information model. So if you're working with data sets that are maybe stored on your computer or in another database, then we're going to do that. We're going to do that shortly. So as it loads, remember that this is part of the ArcGIS solution. So we have different templates. If you're looking to having maybe specific apps or maps, you can actually be able to get them from the ArcGIS for Local Government Solutions page. There are very good documentations on what you can be able to achieve. So it's and these templates are actually based on best practices, so you'll have a good starting point as a local government. I think it's almost done. Let's give it a few more minutes. Yeah, so we are done. This is done. So let's go back to our geodatabase and see if the schema has been added there. So I'm going to refresh and just see if the schema has been added. Yeah, so the schema has actually been added. So I want to just add maybe one of the data sets to our map and see how the kind of attribute information that we will be able to get. Just give me a few more minutes. So we have different data sets here. As I mentioned, if you feel maybe there are data sets that are not here and you need them, you can be able to add them. If there are those that you feel you do not need and they are added here, then you can actually be able to remove them. So let me just add the land use data sets and see the kind of schema that you have. So we have different categories here. We have proposed land uses, we have current land uses, we have zoning districts, we have overlay districts and all that. So if maybe you do not need any of these, you can be able to remove them. I just want to open the attribute table and see what comes with it. Yeah, so on the attribute table, we have the land use code, we have the land use description, we have the last update editor and all that. So if there's more information that you will need to be added to this schema, maybe the size or something, you can add as much information as you want. And if there are also attributes that you do not need, then you can be able to remove them. So this is just one of the examples. So there are so many data sets here. There are so many data sets. You can choose what you want to work with. If you're working with parcels, zoning regulations, you can be able to work with all this. So there are so many data sets. So it's just a good starting point for our local government, and also encourages you to work from a centralized place. And since it's a harmonized model, then we'll have reduced redundancies and duplication across the different departments within the local governments. So let's go back to So suppose you have data sets that are already existing in a database. So the other option is to have an enterprise geodatabase. But for the interest of time, I'm not going to create an enterprise geodatabase and define the different user roles within the enterprise geodatabase. But I'm going to assume that we have already done that and we want to connect to a database that is already existing and actually load data to our information model. But if you need to create a new database, simply come to tools and search for create enterprise geodatabase. Then you'll be able to create an enterprise geodatabase and even define the different users within your database. But for the interest of time, that's going to take a lot of time. For the interest of time, we're going to assume that we've already done that and access data from an existing database. So we'll simply create a new database connection and then connect to that database. But before that, so as I also mentioned, we have different types of databases that you can be able to use. So if you're working with Microsoft SQL Server, if you're working with Postgres, if you're working with DB2, all these are compatible with ArcGIS, so you can be able to work with any of those databases. So the first thing that I'm going to do is actually ensure that my database is running. So for this demonstration, I'm going to I'm using PostgresSQL. And if we can, let me share my screen once again. Yes, so I'm using PostgresSQL for this presentation, but you can be able to work with any other database. So I have to sign into my database and then ensure that I can actually be able to access it. Yes, so I have information in my database already. And for this presentation, I'll just pick on one of the data sets. I think I have some data on spot heights that I want us to add to our information model. So I'll come back still to my desktop application. So before I even go there, I have installed PostgresSQL on my computer for the purposes of this presentation. But best practice will be to have this database in a server. Then different users can actually be able to access information from the database from there. So I just did this for the purpose of this presentation. So we're going back to our desktop application, and then we create a database connection and access information within our database. So I'll come here under databases. I'll create a new database connection. And then we have this interface here. So as I mentioned, you can be able to work with different database platforms. So we have DB2, Oracle, Postgres, all this, SQL Server, all this. So you can actually be able to work with any of these databases. So for the purposes of this presentation, again, I'm mainly going to work with PostgresSQL. Then the instance is localhost, database authentication. Then I'll put in my username and my password. Then I'm going to define, just a minute. Yeah, so I'm going to mainly work with the spot height database, data from there. Sure. Let me just redo this. Let me be sure I put in the right password. Okay, yeah, so I think I hadn't put in the right password. So we already have a new database connection here. And I am interested in just adding one data set from my database. So again, this is just for demonstration purposes. So I'll cancel this and just insert a new map and add the data sets. So I'm going to add this data on spot heights. Yeah, so I have these data sets. So this is also for demonstration purposes, but you can work with any other data set that you have. So I can then export these data sets. So come here under data, and I can export these features to that to the geodatabase that we have been working on. So this is just to show that you can actually be able to bring in data that is already existing in any other database to your information model, or even export data from your information model to a database that you're working from. So and then again, once you're done working with this data, you can be able to publish it to an enterprise portal or share it to ArcGIS Online. So still under share option, you can choose to publish this as a web layer to ArcGIS Online or to your enterprise portal, depending on where you're working from. So I think that marks the end of my demonstration. So this was mainly to show how you can be able to get started as a county government or a local authority in case you do not have anything in place, mainly starting from the information model. And I think what I need to mention is that all the local government solutions are actually based on the local government information model. And so we'll be having series of presentations showcasing the different solutions that we have for the local government. And I've also added resources for anyone. If you need to find more information about the local government information model and the kind of solutions that you can deploy for your local government, then I think these resources will actually be very, very helpful. So as I mentioned, we'll be having series of presentations on the different solutions that we have for local government. And we are looking forward to having you in for